Welcome back to Ta-Da 3D Printing. Today I wanted to talk about my booth at the local gift shop that I've been selling 3D items at. I've posted some things throughout the last journey and you've seen little snippets, but I wanted to kind of talk about it as a whole. So I was very excited about this booth because it's at a local gift shop, so it's in town. Previously, my miniatures that I sell are on Etsy. So I was excited about having something local that we wouldn't have to worry about shipping things, and we also wouldn't have to worry as much about having listings and keeping exact stock. It would just be items are displayed, those things are what are for sale. If we sold a couple more of something, then they would be able to see other things. So I was really excited about just kind of shifting things a little bit. Also, at this gift shop where they have booths from multiple different vendors, they have over 100 different vendors. What's cool about it is you don't have to man the space. So it's open 7 days a week, and customers can come in and grab things from different booths, go to the front and pay. And so we wouldn't have to deal with any kind of transactions or sales tax, things like that ourselves. So at the end, they take a 15% commission and they deal with sales tax. So at the end of the month, you will get a report and you get a check for the amount of sales, the balance. So I thought this was a really great setup. There were some things that we had to kind of figure out that were different than having items for sale online, because before we would kind of just package things up with this real nice foam wrap, put them in, of course, packing peanuts, and ship them. But some of these items, they might have multiple pieces to them, or we were a little bit more delicate. So we had to figure out a way to package them and display them in a different way here at this booth. So we did spend some time on that. I also grouped things so you could purchase each individual item, or you could purchase a whole dollhouse or a whole room box with furniture in it. And that was a little challenging to figure out how to kind of package and display, have like a clear front on these things so that things didn't get moved out, because that was a set and needed to be sold for one price. But then I did notice that people did like playing with things, so we kind of shifted a little bit later. But we started, it was a 6-month contract. We pay $123 a month for a 2-foot deep, 4-foot wide, 6-foot tall. It has the pegboard, so it's really a blank slate of how you want to display your items. And I chose to 3D print all my shelves, all my brackets, everything in that space was 3D printed. And when I was setting it up, I was trying to decide 2 different kind of categories to focus on. I have my minis because I've already been selling those for years on Etsy. I already have stock of them. They're already designed by me, which means nobody else has the exact same design of those. So nobody's gonna have the exact same item. Or because I have been posting so much on YouTube of 3D printing in general, I was also thinking about printing more creations by other people that you could purchase through Patreons. So, I was considering, should I do whatever is trending at the moment, the airless basketball, the dragons, the different things, different articulated animals. And I chose not to go the route of the articulated animals and the 3D printed designs by other people, because I really felt like I already have the stock and nobody's going to be able to compete with my miniatures. Also, if for some reason this didn't work out, then I could just put my items back on Etsy. It wouldn't be a loss of me designing and 3D printing all of these things and then them not going anywhere. So I went the route of the miniatures, and I was very excited about that. We opened so my contract started July 1st. We were able to start setting up in June. They opened July 1st for a soft opening, then they did a grand opening. So my contract went from July to the end of December. So I kind of was watching as the traffic shifted from mostly vendors that were setting up to customers. There was a lot of people in there. But the first couple months, I didn't have any sales. And I thought, okay, well, you know, different times of the year, summertime, this is a new store. This particular person that had this gift shop had another one in another location. This was a second location. And so I felt like he'd already kind of proven the model there. Even some of the vendors at the other location had chosen to have a second location here. So we had kind of some big city vibes from that. And it really was a very exciting time to be in there with the other vendors setting up. And there was a lot of traffic, but I just was not getting sales. So I decided that I still wanted to stay within my miniature focus. So I started adding like domestic animals, cats and dogs. I was thinking about, you know, scaling them small so that they would be the exact right size. And before I spent a lot of time making them exact and maybe scaling them too small and having the joints not work, I decided to just purchase a few items from STL Flicks, some different Patreons, so that I could just have them ready to go. We did those, and we did make a sale. Our first sale was a cat, and so we started kind of adding a few more things, and I was seeing the animals were selling. I added a few dragons and I sold a few dragons. So I thought, okay, well, even though dragons and miniatures that were very domestic style didn't really go, that's what was selling. So I started kind of shifting, and I tried to also make things kind of more local. We had heard in our local lakes that we had some alligators, so I added some cute little alligators. And I did also talk to the owners as I was in there, because when I had first started, they had said, you know, they didn't want everybody selling the exact same thing. So certain people could sell soap, certain people could sell jewelry, certain people could sell, it was all just focused on gift ideas, but they didn't want everybody competing selling the exact same thing. So my focus was on miniatures, and they said no one else will sell dollhouse miniatures. No problem. So as I started adding the animals, I was talking to them and saying, hey, these are what are selling more. Is that okay? It's not exactly, you know, these dragons and different animals are kind of starting to get a little more fairy tale and a little more toy, and not so much the collectible miniatures. Is that fine? And they were fine with it. So as the months went on, I did continue to make sales. I also was starting to think of shifting more towards having more animals and maybe even pulling the miniatures, because I had only sold one miniature. It was a mirror. Everything else was some sort of animal or some sort of creation that I had paid for a design from somebody else. So I was kind of shifting that direction, but I didn't want to make a huge change and have empty spots or weird inventory through the shopping season, the end of the year. So I decided to leave everything, and January 1st, I went in I'd printed it off, what I'd sold, and I was just gonna tell them, hey, I'm shifting my focus a little bit. I'm just gonna max this thing out with anything trending 3D printing, whether it be articulated animals or maybe it would be other things too. I went in to have that discussion with them, and there was a new 3D print booth that had just opened January 1st. And I was really frustrated, more with myself, because I had already kind of proven to myself that at this location, that's what I needed to be selling. And then I have somebody come in that's selling very similar types of things. And so, you know, how do we decide what does that person sell and I sell, if that's even a thing? So I did talk to the owner, and he basically just told me we can both sell. You know, they're not that similar. You're selling smaller things and they're selling bigger things. And I thought, okay, well, let's try this out. And I continued to add more things. And I was really excited, for example, with Blob Labs, plant people and rock people, because they were the perfect size doll to fit in with my smaller scale. So I thought that's a really cute kind of combination thing that I can start shifting towards. We printed a whole batch of the plant people in different styles, different colors. We were enjoying it so much. We went in to set them up, and the other booth had them too. So where I was kind of trying to sell a lot of my items for around $10 was kind of my focus. They had them for sale for $4. So I had to kind of regroup then and say, all right, am I going to get in this race to the bottom on prices? Because if we're both selling the same thing, that's kind of where it starts to go. This person was not on the same aisle as me, but it's in the same store. So if we're both selling plant people, it's not a big enough space that people aren't going to notice. So if I'm trying to sell them for $9 and they're trying to sell them for $4, they're going to buy the other person's. Even if mine have more exciting filaments, I had color change, I had, shifting things that were rainbow, they just printed single color. Yes, that appeals a little bit, but not to be 2 and 3 times the price. So I decided that I was going to be competitive, and I dropped my price to $3.99, 1 penny less than them. And we looked to make sure that as we were printing things, we were still going to make money, especially on the items that have a lot of color change. That's a big deal because you're wasting a lot of filament. So we really gave it a shot, and we did sell plant people. We continued to sell animals, and we did sell the plant. They're the different pets, the pet rock, the pet plant. And it was fun selling them. It was fun making sales. It was fun saying, oh, all the Monsteras are gone. We need to print another batch. That was really fun. But the sales the quantity was not enough. And so I started to do the math, and I said, okay, not including any of the costs that you need to factor in, if I'm selling these for $4 or less, $3.99, if I'm selling them for $4, just to make my rent $123, I need to sell almost 30 of them. I wasn't selling 30 of anything, even the other animals. We were making, $20 a month, $30. It wasn't even covering when you don't, and then there's all the other things you have to factor in. The commission that we were paying them, the filament cost, our cost. And, that's where somebody that's brand new to 3D printing might have a little bit of an advantage, because I have a different overhead, because I have rent here. I have 2 people to pay. It's not just me with 3, a couple printers and, oh shoot, I'll just get some prints going and what sells. I have a little different level that I have to keep here. So that is kind of a shift that is interesting, that new people might have an advantage. And I am seeing too that, of course, as new, easier to use printers are coming in, we're seeing a huge shift in the quantity of people trying to sell. So I kept going for a few months, but I finally decided that May is my last month at this booth. And it was really hard to give them a letter of, okay, my contract is going to be up at the end of the month. I felt like maybe I should have tried different things. Maybe I should have tried the animals in the beginning. But I think I was always afraid that I would be just competing neck and neck with somebody so much that has the exact same thing. And that's never been my focus. I want to sell my creations that people like. And if I don't have the market there, then I need to find a different market, or I need to design something different. So I made the call to not sell anymore there. And I'm glad, because in April, I think we only had about $40 in sales. This month, we've got about $50. So it's not even paying the rent there. And it makes me wonder how the other person is doing, because their 6 months will be up soon. But they are also selling larger dragons. They're scaling as big as they can. And so maybe that's working in that scenario. But it just really makes me kind of look at not just that booth, whether it's whether it's manageable to sell there, or if Etsy also needs to shift a little bit. I do feel like, because we were so focused on the booth and making new things and it was fun, I got really caught up in, yes, this sold, let's make more, and not even really seeing, okay, but are we making money there? And so I know that I was so focused there that my Etsy store did drop a little bit because I wasn't focusing and posting and creating new things there. So I've kind of decided to shift back towards Etsy is my focus. Etsy is what is paying the bills. Even YouTube is not paying the bills. Etsy is what's paying the bills. So those other things that I enjoy doing and I want to continue doing, like YouTube, they are there, but they need to have their place. So the other thing that I'm trying to focus on is we've started to, in addition to selling our items, the physical items, we're now selling the prints. So because 3D printers have become so easy to use, people are more interested in 3D printing it themselves, or they could be 3D printing it themselves than purchasing a 3D printed item. So I have both options available right now, that people can buy the physical item or they can buy the 3D print to make it themselves. And I think I'm going to start shifting more towards that, designing files that people can 3D print. I personally would prefer, when I am making something, when I was setting up stuff for the booth, I would prefer either one maker that makes so many different things, or to be able to just purchase one item one time and not have to pay monthly. So I feel like if I am interested in that rather than paying monthly, then probably other people are as well. So right now I have them up on Etsy, but I am also paying kind of rent there. It's 20 cents per listing for 90 days, which doesn't sound like anything. But when you end up with hundreds of listings, whether they're selling or not, and right now, as far as I can tell, Etsy doesn't have a way that I can split how are my designs doing versus my physical items. So it's a little tricky to see exactly, how much money are we making on those. But I would like to have a platform that I can sell item by item, or maybe have an option of selling monthly, have two options. And so I'm going to kind of look into that, and feel free to let me know of a platform that you guys like for 3D printing, because I do like purchasing stuff on Etsy, but I feel like a lot of the other platforms might be more suited for 3D printing files. So let me know which ones your favorite are. I do know that you can add some things to printables now, but I haven't delved into it from the seller aspect. So let me know if you guys prefer something, or if you as a seller prefer something. And of course, I never want to ask anybody to tell me, their secrets, because I feel like that frustrates me too when I see Facebook group posts of somebody with a brand new printer that says, how are y'all making money with this? Because clearly it is competitive. And if we're all making the same designs, it just gets competitive in the price. And we're all going to get priced out of that when some of these big manufacturers can ship things cheaper than we can even get the filament. So I'm curious to see what your experience is, but please don't feel like I'm asking you to tell me all your secrets, because I do think that we can help each other and work together without that. So I really appreciate you guys listening to my new update about the booth, that I'm going to be focusing more on Etsy again. And I appreciate your support in watching all of the videos. Thanks for watching.